Hello, today I have two fun techniques featuring the modern Christmas suite. Now this suite was one of the released products in the online exclusive section of our store, and it came out just earlier this month and is so beautiful. It is black, white, and gold, and there's so many fun things that go with it. I think you're going to love it. So my name is Karen Slawinski. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I live in Akron, Ohio. So I am really thrilled to be here with you today, and we're going to be making this card. This is our first technique, and we're going to make it in another color palette. And then I've got a second technique to show you, and then almost a third one. It's not quite a technique, but it is something fun to do with this suite of products. So I have a whole bunch of cards I'm going to show you. Of course, we're going to make this card together, and then I have some ornaments that I made with this suite. I think you're really going to love it. It is so beautiful and classic, this look of the suite. It is great. So let's get started and make our fun card. Before we dive into our technique, I'd like to show you what is in the suite. So this is the stamp set. There are 8 stamps in here. You can see it's just beautifully written with this beautiful font. And then the dies, there are 11 dies. And let me open this up. So this is most of them. I also have the circle that we're going to be using. And then there are some ornament toppers. So I have pulled both of those off of there. So those are the stamp set and the dies. And then there are these big gold rings, and this is what I'm going to use to make the ornament. We have black and gold and white baker's twine. So this is very, very pretty. Gives you the option of doing both of them. And then we have the paper. Oh my goodness. Wait till you see this paper. So I'm going to fan this out. So one side has all the designs with gold embossed patterns. Okay, let me get all of them so you can get a real good sense of what these papers are. And then the back side of these are black and white patterns. So you can use this, except for the one that says fa la la and maybe the Christmas trees. You can use these patterns all year long. So it doesn't have to be just for Christmas. And actually some of these you could use year round too, especially this one with the stripes and the stars. All right, I'm going to set that aside. So this is the card that I showed you before, and we're going to be making that in red. So I have, for this card, of course, we have our envelope, and then our base is basic or thick basic white. So I'm going to go ahead and get that folded right now. So this is 8.5 by 5.5, and I'm just going to fold it right in half and then give that a good crease and get my bone folder here underneath. So that is our card base. I'm going to set that aside. And then we need a couple little things here. So we have some gold foil, and you just need a little scrap of it, no bigger than 1 inch by 1 inch. I have some more basic white. I have my panel here that is 3 3/4 by 5. And then this is about a 3-inch square. This is going to be our ornament. And this is a 1/2 inch by 5.5, and we're going to put that on the inside of the card. So I'm going to set those aside for now. And then we have our backing or a matting for our piece where the ornament's going to go. So this is just shy of 4 by 5 1/4. It's actually 3 5/8 by 5 3/16. So just a little bit more narrow than we are used to. So it's going to layer just like this. And then I have a little piece of our baker's twine, and this is about a 2-inch little snippet of that. So let's begin with the technique. So for this, we are going to do some ink blending. And I have chosen my blending brush, and I'm going to do real red. I think this looks really beautiful in jewel tones. So if you just think about, you know, purples and deep greens, and emerald, or emerald is a green, and the red, and they're just beautiful, rich colors. So I'm going to start ink blending up here at the top, and I want it to be heavy up at the top and go down to light at the bottom. So I'm just going to work my way down. And then one thing that I like to do when I am ink blending, so I don't get my fingers dirty, I use a block to kind of hold it down. And that way I'm not getting the oil from my fingers on my panel here. All right, so I got a nice even light coat here at the bottom, but I want this much darker and heavier up toward the bottom and blend over to this. So I'm just going to keep doing this, and I will speed this up, and I'll be back to you in just a minute. All right, I think that looks pretty good. And I do want to give a shout out to a demonstrator who lives in Australia. Her name is Elisa Tilsner. She is actually the person that I got this idea from. So thank you for Elisa. So here is our panel. So now we are going to do a water technique on this. And you could do it by spritzing, but I think that's a little bit more difficult to control. So what I have is some plastic wrap. So I just took a big piece of it, and then I just kind of balled it up loosely like this, okay? And then I have this plastic tub, and I put a paper towel in it, and then I got it wet. So this isn't dripping wet, but this paper towel is wet to the touch. So we are gonna take, I'm gonna just turn it sideways, the scrunched up piece of plastic wrap, and we're gonna dab it in here, and then we're gonna touch it onto our embossed panel. And I like that you have much more control over this than you do when you just splatter with a paintbrush with water on it. And so you just keep dabbing, and you're gonna get, sometimes you're gonna get a little bit of ink blending from the darker, you know, if you start here and move down, you may get some of those little bit darker tones. And that looks great. It helps make this more unique. And if you need to, you know, re-scrunch it up so it's, you know, not so uniform anymore after pressing it, go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to keep pressing away until I get this nice even texture. Now, one thing I would recommend is when you want to do this, I would do a scrap of paper first. So try it, because sometimes what I have found is some colors just don't look that pretty when you do this. And I really loved how the blue looked, so I was very excited about that. I've done it in purple. I wasn't thrilled when I did garden green. That one, I don't know, there was just something about that that I didn't like. So give it a try on some scrap paper. But once you get this to your liking, I think that looks pretty nice. All right, now this has to dry. So I'm gonna set this aside, and I'm just gonna move this out of our way. I'm gonna move this whole blending thing. All right, so we can work on the rest of our card. So the first thing that we need to do is do our ornament. So this is going to be gold embossed with the words Merry Christmas. So I've got my Versamark ink here, and I've got Merry Christmas. Picked up a scrap of something there. So here's my Merry Christmas. I'm just gonna put that right in the middle of this. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to use my embossing buddy. And I have it sitting right here too. Well, we will see how this goes. It's always good to use your embossing buddy, which is this thing right here. That helps you to get rid of any static. But I forgot, so if it doesn't turn out, we'll just turn this over. Paper does have two sides. And then I have my gold embossing powder in this little container. And I just take a scrap of paper, pick up this, and let's see how good we did without getting too much on there. All right, I think we did pretty well. There's maybe just a little bit here. Okay, so that looks really pretty. So get this out of the way, and then we can heat emboss this. So I'm gonna grab my heat tool, and you're gonna wanna do this on setting number 2. So I apologize if this is too loud, but I'm gonna melt my embossing powder. There, isn't that so pretty in the gold? All right, so now I need to take my die. So there is my circle die. I'm gonna cut out my ornament. And then I'm also going to take my little piece of gold foil. I'm going to cut out my ornament topper. I will be right back. Okay, so here we are with our beautiful ornament. So I'm going to take just a little bit of glue, and I'm going to stick that on the very bottom of this little topper. Get that glue started. Okay, it's just a tiny bit of glue. And that's going to go right up here. All right. And let that dry. All right, so then we can go back to our card. So here is our card, and we're going to be adding our panel. Let me see how it is. It's almost dry. It's pretty good. All right, so let us assemble this. So I've got the base, and I'm going to glue this onto my real red panel. Like I said, this is just a little bit smaller border than we typically do. Give that a press. And then we need to take our little bit of twine. So I've got a glue dot here, and I'm going to grab that. Okay, I'm going to use my take your pick tool and pick that off. And I'm just going to eyeball somewhere in the middle. Okay, and then that is going to hold down this part here. And then we can just go ahead and wrap that around the back. And what I like to do is just take a piece of Scotch tape to hold that down. Okay, so there we have our little string. So then this, we can go ahead and grab our dimensionals. And so for here, I'm going to use 4 dimensionals on the ornament. And then I'm going to grab a few little minis, and I'm going to put that on the sides of my ornament there. So the string can kind of go in between that. So let's peel those off. And then we'll put our ornament on the card. Okay. All right, so that looks fabulous. And we can go ahead and stick that down on our card as well. Oh, it looks like my glue is getting a little bit low. Oh, those backings just go everywhere, don't they? All right, I know it seems maybe a little bit early to start making Christmas cards, but I like to make a few at a time, and so I love doing it this way. So now I wanted to grab this ribbon. So this is also available in our store. Let me grab my good scissors. And then I'm going to make a bow. This is called the Gold Striped Mesh Ribbon, and that just looks so pretty. So we're going to need about 10 inches. And we're just going to make a bow. I almost always make my bows right from the spool. That way I am not wasting any of my ribbon. All right, so now I have this beautiful mesh bow. And I'm going to stick that on with a glue dot. Where did I put my glue dots? Oh, right here. All right, so I'm going to grab a dot from here. And sometimes they're hard to see on this little backing. And I'm going to stick that right up at the top. All right, then for the inside of this card, I have chosen to use a sentiment from another stamp set. I am using the Words for the Season. This has not only Christmas, but it has Halloween, and it has stuff that you could use for somebody who's getting married. So it's just a nice variety. This is a beautiful one coming up for Thanksgiving, but I've chosen one from here. And so I'm going to put that on the inside. But first, I already did this ahead of time so we wouldn't have to wait. But I did this little strip So actually, I didn't even do it long enough. This is a little bit short, but you know what? Nobody knows that it was going to be the full length. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it down, and I will just put a little even gap around it. So just like that. But I wanted to have that in my card before I stamped my sentiment. All right, back to my real red. And then one of the things that I like to do when I put my stamps on, I love using this longer. This is size H, and it helps me to center this in my card. So I go ahead and I put that on, and it just helps me to make it look good when I do the inside. So there is that. And then for my envelope, I did another piece that we're going to just stick here. So this is a great way to use up your scraps. So this is about a 1 inch, and I cut it about 4.5 inches, but then I'm going to trim it as soon as I get it on my card. So I do try to get the glue all the way to the edges when I'm doing the envelope so that there is nothing to catch. So I'm just going to put that on the side like so. And then I have just a little bit that I can snip off. Grab my scissors here. There, and I have that beautiful card. So, isn't that a beautiful technique? I think that you, if you try it, you're going to really love it. So, moving on to our next technique. What I did ahead of time is I stamped this tree. So this tree, there are 2 different trees. This is the one that's more of a fir tree, and it's very full. And so what is cool is I wanted to add ornaments. So I have this little bottle of glue. It's just a fine tip applicator that I put my multi-purpose glue in. And I'm actually going to just make dots on here. So here, let me just get this little glob off. All right, so I'm going to take and I'm going to make dots with this glue, just like these are little sparkle lights on my tree. All right, I'm going to keep making dots. And what I'm going to do is stop right here for now, because you get the idea of how it is to make dots. And then I'm going to take my gold embossing powder. All right, let me grab this. And I'm going to sprinkle that, put this here, over those dots. So the glue is being used to hold the embossing powder instead of the Versamark ink. Okay, so you can see they look very dull, but now let's get that heat tool back over here. And now I have little gold balls on here. So that is just a fun technique, and I want to show you the card that I made with that. Okay, so here it is. And I think on this one, I needed to wait just a little bit more. It's still got a little bit of wet from the glue. So let the glue dry with the embossing powder before you emboss it. But here, look up close. You can see those gold dots. So here is that card that I made with it. And then wishing you peace and joy. And then for the envelope on that one, I did 'Tis the Season. So this next one is the card that is sort of a technique. Not really, but on this card, I did the other tree. And I'm going to try to tilt it so you can see the shine. So I took the stamp that are these lines, and I put the Versamark down, and I used my clear embossing powder. And so I just get these little lines. It looks like there's tinsel on my tree. So that is the other almost technique that I wanted to show you. So here is this card, Be Jolly and Merry Christmas. And Merry Christmas is off to the side because obviously we've cut this panel off. There is that one. And then my next one, I did another ornament. And for this one, I fussy cut those trees out of the designer series paper. And then I cut the ornament out of another one of those. And I use that, I'm not even sure what it is, these softly swaying lines, and I put it either side. So it's sort of like garland on a tree. So there's that one with Merry Christmas. And then I put another tree here on my envelope. Next one is another ornament card. I used the other shape, and I used that beautiful paper that's full of ornaments. And then I put a piece of red behind it. And the fussy cut, 'Tis the Season, with Merry Christmas. I love the font of this. And then Wishing You Peace and Joy. And then this card, this is actually a really fun layout to do. So this card is the long way, as you can see here. And so when you fold it in half, if you cut at 2 3/4 inch, so that's what this panel is, comes off of here. So I just turned it, and that allows you to get this panel all from the same card piece. So I have, this is the paper, and then I fussy cut a couple of these, I think these are mistletoe pieces, and then I use my blends to color them in the lemon lime twist. So a little bit different color scheme, but I think it works very well. Wishing You Peace and Joy here. And let's get this block out of the way. And then I have one more card, and then I have some ornaments to show you. So this last card features 2 more of the pieces of a designer series paper that have the gold foil. And then I did this ornament. So this is just the ornament by itself is so pretty. And then I used my baker's twine across here to add a little bit more interest. And then Wishing You Peace and Joy and Merry Christmas. And I put stars on this envelope. And then let me get to some of my ornaments. So my first ornament here, I used the Fa La La paper. So there's the Fa La La paper on the back side. And then I fussy cut the trees. So these two are together, and this is a single one. So I popped this one up, and I added a star because it didn't have a star to it. And then I just put that piece, the circle of white behind it, to help the tree stand out. So that was the first ornament. Then my next ornament, this is actually one that was based on an idea from the Stampin' Up! Website. This is that beautiful other shape, and I used this striped designer paper. Again, I colored my mistletoes, I almost forgot the name of them, with my blends to just make them stand out a bit. And then I fussy cut 'Tis the Season. And then my last ornament is this one here, which I cut the star shaped, and it's double-sided, so both sides are the same. And this one, I don't have it attached at the bottom, as you can see. These other ones, I attached it all the way at the bottom. But this one is a little bit more free-flowing. So there, oh my gosh, this is such a mess of stuff that you can see through these ornaments. But those are all my cards using this modern Christmas suite. I really hope that you give this a try. And I hope that you've enjoyed learning these 2 fun techniques. If you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. You can get details on my blog, which is thepowerofacard.blogspot.com. Please share this with your crafting friends, and leave me a comment. I love reading those. Thanks so much for watching.